You're listening to Walk It Out with Trisha Goyer, where we discover what it looks like to follow God and be swept away on the journey of a lifetime. Author of over 70 books, mom of 10, yes, 10, homeschooler and speaker, Trisha Goyer will explore what radical obedience to God's word looks like. It's time to hear from God lovers who've dared to say yes. Listen in to heart chats and learn how others overcame doubts and fears. Discover how God used ordinary people to impact others one step at a time. If you're ready to get radical, get going, and make a difference in this world, you're at the right place. Here's your host, prolific writer, world traveler, people lover, and mega nap taker, Trisha Goyer.
Well, friends, you know, if you follow me on social media at all, that I love The Voice. I don't get much TV time around here with 10 kids. Pretty much, I never get the remote control, but I figured out how to watch The Voice on my computer in my room, and it has been my quiet time. And I will say this season has had, the last season that just finished, had the best guests. There were so many people to cheer on, okay? And you guys know that I'm writing a book with Todd and Tilghman, but my other favorites, so I have multiple favorites. My other favorite was Jon Mullinins, and I had a chance to meet him in person last week, and I'm so excited to talk to him and his wife, Whitney. So let me tell you a little bit about them. So Jon was inspired to start singing in high school. He auditioned for an a cappella group and quickly became one of the leads. Soon thereafter, he started playing guitar and writing songs. Jon went on to study vocal performance in college, where he met his wife, Whitney. They later moved to Nashville so Jon could pursue his music and build their life together. 4 years ago, Whitney hit her head during a fall and lost 60% of her speech and motor skills. Jon put everything on hold to help her through rehab, and over the last 3 years, she has improved greatly. Inspired by his wife's strength, Jon has since gotten back to music. So welcome, Jon and Whitney. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having us.
Hi.
I'm so glad that both of you are here, and I got to meet both of you last week. I'm telling you, when I saw you guys and heard your story on The Voice, I just fell in love with you both. So thank you. But Jon, let's start with you and just tell me a little bit about your music and just how it has just grown over the years and why you love it so much.
So music has been a really interesting progression for me. I went from being a trumpet player in middle school to a singer in high school and trumpet player, and then went to college for vocal performance for opera. So it was a really interesting change and quite the roller coaster. And my mom always sang, my dad always played trumpet, and my sister always sang and played flute. So we were just really musical. And so recently music has grown a ton for me because I'm able to write with different writers here in Nashville. Nashville has definitely helped change the artistic landscape of my music.
Yeah.
It's helped. People say iron sharpens iron, or the Bible says iron sharpens iron. And that's definitely true here. And so I feel like it's definitely changed the game, being able to move to Nashville, writing with different writers. And of course, The Voice has helped really get the music out there in a different way than usual.
Yeah, I love watching. In fact, I just went back and watched your audition again this morning. And Blake is so awesome. Like, I just love Blake so much.
It was incredible hearing his reaction, and it was very humbling to have somebody that incredible be so nice.
Yeah, and he said, this is the greatest day of my coaching career, because he was the only one that turned. He kept looking at the other ones like, what are you guys doing? How come you're not turning?
Yeah.
Oh, and then just see the joy on Whitney on your face as you just stood back there, and it just was so clear. So what was it like to see Jon? I mean, I'm sure you've seen him, from college all the way through, just finally see him have that moment and see that chair turn.
It was very surreal because his mom and I argue about who's his biggest fan, but I obviously haven't seen him sing as much as she has, or as long as she has, but I have seen all of the hard work that he's put in the last, what have we been together for 14 years? Mm-hmm. So I've seen the change for over the last 14 years. And just to get there and have somebody like Blake Shelton recognize him for who he is authentically was such a huge deal. And that's just been like my heart, is that somebody would, my like dreams and what I want for him is that somebody will see him as he is and love who he is exactly where he is and not want to move him. So it was really cool to see that.
Yeah. And it's so cool. And I think, Jon, I mean, between you and Todd laughing and crying, and like the joy was so clear. I think Nick even said it once, like, we're laughing and crying and what's going on here?
It's so weird because Jon doesn't cry. And so to see him cry, like he always jokes that all his emotions are in his music. So to see him cry on stage like that, I knew it was just such, like, he was so overwhelmed with how awesome that journey was.
It was such an emotional journey. Lord have mercy.
Yeah. And then being eliminated and then picked up by Nick was like, oh, that was such a great moment. And I was like, yay. And,
it was so awesome for both of you to be able to.
Yeah. And that was incredible. And Blake had been really supportive about us singing together and how much he loved both of us. And, the steal from Nick, man, I can't say it's not something I didn't see coming because of Nick's physical clues during my
he's like, come on.
The exit speech. But I will tell you, it's something I'm incredibly grateful for, to have that extra time on the show and cultivate those relationships with all of the cast.
Yeah. And I think that's so cool to see that the relationship afterwards. I've seen you have videos with Mandy, who is also an amazing singer. And then
she's
Todd.
Incredible.
Yeah. And I you always think, and I think that's the one cool thing about The Voice. It seems like there's more friendships between the I don't want to say contestants, but you know what I mean, the people on the show compared to like maybe other reality shows where it's more of a competition where they're fighting.
It's really interesting because when anybody asks him like what his favorite part was, he was gone for quite a while. So we were separated for quite a bit of time. And he's like, I learned so much, but the time that I got to spend with these other people and the things that I got to learn from them was his favorite part. So that's really cool that the relationships were formed out there that are so strong.
Yeah, they're definitely the highlight is when we spend 24 hours a day together for however long we were out there, it's pretty insane to be able to build relationships that quickly, that fast, and that deep.
Yeah, and people that understand, because I write books and I get together with other writers at conferences, and I have a group of writers that we get together every summer. This year we're not because of this stupid pandemic. But anyway, we get together every year and we actually help plot each other's books. We, cheer each other on. And I think so many times, these are people that we're competing for the bestsellers list when we write the books, but it truly is like we are helping each other. We're giving each other ideas. We are, brainstorming. And I think when you have people that understand and you come with these common connections and this common love, it is so easy to build those relationships and support each other. Like, it doesn't have to be this cutthroat world. We can really lift each other up. And as we're lifting each other up, we all end up rising higher together.
Absolutely.
What do they say? Rising tides rise all ships.
Rising tides lift all ships.
Oh, rising tides lift all
ships. There we go.
So when we're all working towards the same goal and we lift each other up, it's just this incredible, and it's funny, people call it a platform. And anytime somebody says, what a great platform The Voice was, I visually see us all standing on a platform, which is ridiculous, but I just see like all of us lifting that platform together and becoming this one family. And I'm a visual person. I see. Yeah, it's weird. Okay, moving on.
No, you go. It makes sense. It makes total sense. Because in fact, one of my friends even called, like, comparing the writing thing, it's like these stair steps going up, and as we're helping each other up, like I might help someone up to the next level, but then someone else might be there to like give me a boost to the next level. Like, it is a visual thing when we're all like lifting each other and supporting each other up.
Yeah, definitely.
And I have to say, the Thinking Out Loud song, I want that in my life. Like, can you just record that and send it to me?
I had actually thought about recording the covers of the songs I did on the show.
Yeah. Well, please do. I just have to keep going back to YouTube to listen to it. So it would be helpful for me. This is great. But I know, so even leading up to this, I would love to talk about just Whitney's accident and what you had to go through. Because I find so many times, like when we're in these very hard places, we're like, what in the world? Like, why are we here? This is so hard. And then later you could see how, so much strength comes out of it and growth comes out of it. But in the middle of it, it's so hard. So can you tell us a little bit, and either one of you can share what happened and just what it was like going through that process?
Jon's pushing the microphone over to me. So, I could start from the beginning, but I, was at work and slipped on something on the floor. And, the next thing I know, I woke up, and I hit the left side of my head, like straight on the concrete floor. And I remember waking up, and I was teaching. And so the kids were like, upset. And we got somebody to come in, and I was taken over to the emergency room, and everything we thought was okay. They said that I had a concussion and that I would be fine in a couple days. And I went back to work. But I felt like my head was disconnected from the rest of my body. It was just a very weird feeling. And I felt, almost instantly, I had like this weird anxiety inside, and I couldn't really describe what I was feeling. And I just happened to have a doctor's appointment scheduled for that day that I was at work. So I went. It was just a generic doctor's appointment. And when I got there and told her what had happened and what I was feeling now, she basically said, okay, no more driving, no more work. Somebody needs to come get you. Here is a list of neurologists that you need to get in to see, one of them. And then from there, things just our life just radically changed. Pretty quickly after that, actually. Anxiety kind of started to rule my life. I found that I didn't want to leave the house, and I didn't want to be by myself, and being around people was an issue. Being around even like my family, which there's just my mom and my dad and my sister. But being around the three of them and Jon was a lot for me. I ended up with home therapists, physical therapists, mental health therapists, speech therapists, because I started losing words. I had so much anxiety and I wasn't able to communicate. And that caused even more stress and anxiety. Go ahead.
And so it was almost like we went from her having this adrenaline high from falling and getting knocked out and everything like that. And then she started developing these things, and it all kind of regressed down to her not being able to put sentences together, not being able to talk, and not being able to finish thoughts, not being able to remember things that had just happened earlier in the day.
I remember at one point where I realized I wasn't even completing full sentences. Jon would complete every sentence for me because I couldn't get the words out. And I was like, man, that I knew in my head, and in my head I could get it completed, but I could not verbalize it.
And then balance.
Yeah.
She was having a hard time with balance. She was having a hard time with dexterity. It was crazy to see all the things that one hit on the head can control. And
suddenly too.
Yeah, so suddenly. And she was just kind of scared that things would never go back to normal, and that, she wouldn't be able to finish her sentence again or sentences again, or not be able to remember what she did earlier that day. Those tiny little things that we all take for granted. She was worried that she would never get back.
And how quickly it changes. Like one day
right.
changed so much for a pretty long time. How long was the processes of the therapist and anxiety? And I'm sure it took a while to come, for things to improve.
Yeah. Honestly, I am still in therapy. I still see a mental health doctor on a regular basis.
Which is so weird because it's something not weird, which is so different for us because it's something before the fall that we never really had to explore.
Right.
Or
I would say 3 years ago, give or take, when we felt like we were back to a norm.
3 years ago?
Or I'm sorry, a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
About a year ago, we felt like, for the longest time, I struggled with finding a new normal and like what that was going to be for me. And there was about a year or two where Jon and I had to relearn how to communicate with each other because it just wasn't the same anymore.
Very challenging.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say about maybe a year and a couple months ago, I found like a new normal. Even talking about the situation now gives me my speech is a little more delayed because I don't know exactly how to explain it.
Right.
I don't know.
I will say, if I can interject, I will say that I think it was a work in progress, and I feel like we started seeing the light at the end of the tunnel when we finally were able to get some answers from some insurance companies and whatnot and get in to see this incredible neurologist. And as soon as we got into his office and sat down, and I will tell you, we were rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was working nonstop. Whitney would not be able to, it was difficult for her to function at home. She wasn't able to work. And we finally got into this neurologist and we sat down with him. And please picture the hardest point we'd ever be in our lives. And then this neurologist sits down with us and he goes, "How's your spiritual life?" And I'm like, "Oh my Lanta." So we both kind of broke down and he started praying with us. And I think that God putting somebody like that in our lives, we don't see him anymore, but God putting somebody in that, like, as a pivot point for us was something that kind of let us see that pinhole of light at the end of the tunnel. Whitney wants to say something.
There's a whole mess of stuff behind the scenes that's included in my story, but this was the third neurologist I think that I was finally able to see. And after just a couple of meetings with him, he got me in with the right doctors that I needed to be with and the right therapists. And that made a huge difference. And that was a little over a year ago. So I think that kind of finally having somebody I felt like that was on our side who didn't just want to over medicate me was huge.
And how amazing. And I just love this, how God puts people in our lives. I mean, this is a neurologist. It's like, let me pray with you. I mean, that is so cool.
What?
Yeah. But that's what you needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how did you feel like the difference walking out of that meeting compared to walking into that room?
We both walked out and we were like,
oh my gosh, somebody listened.
We've finally been heard.
Yeah, somebody listened and didn't think that it was. Nobody ever said that, oh, you're just crazy. It's just in your head. Nobody ever said that, but everybody made me feel that way.
Right.
And that was the first time that I walked away from somebody that said, I hear you, I validate what you're saying, and I'm going to help you.
It was also the first time that we went somewhere where the person didn't think the full answer was on the prescription pad.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's so amazing that, I can relate a little bit. We've adopted 7 kids and, just the trauma they've been through and just the hard stuff. And you're trying to find the right counselors, the right therapists. And we were really struggling with one of our teen daughters. And we ended up going to a new place, and they sat down and they said, well, she has reactive attachment disorder and these are the symptoms. And we like looked at this paper, and it was everything that she was, all her issues and how she was dealing with it and the way she was lashing out at me, like all the things were on that paper. And we're like, just that feeling of, we've been going to different people for 5 years,
Right.
and different counselors, and every week I'm taking her to someplace else and nothing's improving. And I was like, oh my word, like I could totally relate that feeling, like there's someone who knows the problem and can help us. But I love that it's even like there is a spiritual issue to this, because when you get down and you're in darkness, so talk a little bit about that, like that, how that addressing the spiritual part of it has helped you on the journey.
For a long time, I was angry. And I was very confused because I felt like God just kind of walked away. And it was heavy and it was dark and lonely. And it was very hard to explain even to Jon what that felt like. So go ahead.
Like imagine being in the worst time of your life and you can't even talk to express your feelings.
Right. Yeah.
And imagine how lonely that was. And we had to find a way to be able to communicate. And I will say, diving into the spiritual aspect and diving into, maybe this isn't happening to us, but for us, we started looking at the things that came from it.
And it took even until like this last 9 months to a year for me to be able to say, well, this happened, but maybe it was a blessing. Like it's taken me a long time to see that everything that's happened since then has changed our lives for the better. Because it felt like it took so much away from me. That split second of just falling and hitting my head felt like it took away who I was and everything that I was capable of giving to the world or to other people. It felt like all of that was gone in just a second. So for me to be able to sit here and say now, I can see how God has used that to change our lives and to help change people around us is amazing.
Right, because in the middle of it, you're not even thinking like that will ever happen.
Right.
I remember being mad at God, and when we're dealing with these hard stuff with kids, it's like you knew this was going to happen, and you still like let it happen.
Right.
Like I don't understand. We love you, and we're trying to do the best, and like why does it have to be so hard? So in the middle of it, it is, and I think it's important to know that everyone, in some way in their life, is going to face a really hard time where we are angry. And it helps me so much. Like when I go to the Psalms, like David is like, why did you forsake me? It is just like, it's not going to be perfect. And it's okay. Like God's not going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. It definitely, there was a lot of talking about that. Like, why are we where we're at? And then we started to shift our focus of like, instead of why us, things could have been a lot worse. Things could have been a whole lot worse. I've met several people, especially after sharing this story, that have come up to us and talked to us about things that they're going through or their family is going through or their daughter or sister. And you realize we were really blessed that I'm even at this point where I can sit here and have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We do say that Whitney's 85% healed. We see that, she does have her memory back. She has speech back, motor functions. She still deals pretty heavily with anxiety daily.
And even talking about the whole situation.
Yeah, and even talking about the whole situation.
Like the flow of my speech.
But if you are looking from the outside looking in, if it wasn't for that, Whitney would not have started a successful business that she has now. I wouldn't have been able to quit my job and go full-time music. And there's a lot of big things that have happened since then, opportunities for me, opportunities for her. being able to connect with different people, being able to connect with the people that, are basically business, our family that supports Whitney's business. She's been able to connect with these ladies on a different level because she's able to empathize, and Whitney is a sympathizer / empathizer. That's what that's one of her gifts.
Yeah.
And
I'll cry with anybody.
she will cry. She will cry with anybody. So, if she wouldn't have fallen, you wouldn't have seen me on The Voice, because getting that amount of time off of work, and some of it was on the fly, some of it was with less than a week's notice, and so there's just a lot of things to be able to look at the bigger picture and see God at work has been really eye opening for us.
Yeah, I love that so much, and I think when we are facing those hard times and we can't figure out what's going on, it does help to look back later and say, okay, I can see there's a good purpose in it. And I think that can bring hope to a lot of people, because so many people are just struggling right now. There's changes they never expected. I would say the whole world, basically. They're facing changes they never expected. But if we look for, okay, how can even these little changes, how can, we draw closer to our family, can, make more time for each other? I mean, we can either look for the hopeful things or we can be overwhelmed. And not that we're never going to have anxiety or worries, but we can find those glimmers of hope in everyday life, and know that there can be good that comes out of it. And I would love to hear, so we're kind of bringing it back for full circle. We started with The Voice, and just, I know it's a long process, but I would just love to hear, and I know you can't share behind the scenes secrets, but I would just love to hear just a little bit about that journey, even to get on The Voice.
Yeah. So,
he didn't want to do it.
I didn't want to do it. Really? Let's say I had done another reality show in 2010. And then I had previously actually been, approached to audition for The Voice before. Mm-hmm. And so I had been kind of burnt by reality television shows. Right. Didn't really have much of a story. Didn't really have much. I didn't really have much love for the whole process.
Right.
And so I will say I went into this audition kind of with crossed arms. I went with a friend of mine, and I was like, well, I'll just, get 30 seconds through this appointment, and they'll say no, and I'll just have a great dinner, and I'll travel 3.5 hours home, and it would have been a good day trip, I guess. Right. And so I went for this audition, and you were supposed to prepare 3 songs, one of them to a track. And I hope I'm not telling too much. One of them to a track, and which is very, very out of my comfort zone. You came and saw the show last weekend, and I did not use my guitar once. Yeah. And I will say that is very out of my comfort zone.
And somebody even mentioned oh, it's so weird to not see you with a guitar in your hands.
And they were like, you move around a lot. I was like, I'm working on it. Okay, people. So I went into that audition kind of with my arms crossed, and these people probably won't really care about what I do, and that's fine because I do. Mm-hmm. And so you had to fill out information. You had to fill out your bio. You had to fill out what had happened in the most recent years in your life. And I had to give them my phone, which was on airplane mode, so that they could play the track. I go in. It's the same person that auditioned me a couple years earlier. And they were like, tell us, where you're from, how old you are, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, my name is Jon Mullins. I live in right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And they said, tell me the first song you're going to sing. And I sang a song that I loved. And I was like, it's a song that I had performed a good amount. So I wasn't really worried about, hitting the notes. It was incredibly challenging, but again, it was something I was super used to. Yeah. And so I sang the song, and I got all the way through it. And I was like, oh my Lanta, she didn't stop me 30 seconds in. what's happening? And so she goes, okay, what's your second song? And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Like,
So
we're on the second song?
I'm like, we're on the second song. So I get the second song, and I get through the second song, and I'm like, I have no clue what's happening right now. And so I got through the second song, and then all of a sudden she's like, let's hear your third song. And I'm like, this is insane. So the person turns on the track on my phone, again, way out of my comfort zone. So I put my guitar down reluctantly and started singing. And by the end of the song, they were singing it with me, which was insane.
Wow.
And so like we were all just jamming out to it. And then she's like, well, tell me a little bit about your wife, because they were highlighting parts of my story while they were highlighting like parts of my bio and everything while they were listening. And we told them about my wife, and then they handed my phone to her to hand to me. And she's like, oh my gosh, is this your wife? And I was like, yes, the most beautiful woman in the world. And she's like, it's obvious you love her so much. We love your voice. We're so, thankful you came. And I was like, you actually auditioned me a couple years ago. And she was like, well, did I yell at you then? Because I yell at people. I said, I don't know, but I probably yelled back if you did. And she was like, it was just funny. And she was like, we're going to send you to this, other part of the audition process, which again, like, you don't see many people going to that come out of that room. So it was really cool. And
we specifically prayed through the whole thing that God would open the doors that were supposed to be open and close the doors when they were supposed to be closed.
Yeah. So it was really interesting. We never prayed for me to win the show.
Yeah.
We prayed for me to be off of the show at the right time. And so we were praying, if this is the door that you want to be open, God, then open it a little further so I can walk through, because I'm a big boy. So got a call later, and there were a couple other steps that you had to take, a couple more trips, and lo and behold, there I was for blind auditions. And it's probably the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done in my life. I was being on that stage with all those cameras and the judge, or the coaches and the audience. And they had told you, they said, at that moment that you're on the stage, all this preparation you've put into it, all the preparation we've put into it, every single person that's in the audience, every single camera person, every person that has provided food for you, every person that's been ushering you around and driving you to places, at that one moment, they're all there for you. And I'm like, they're like, no pressure. Timing plays a big role into it too. So you kind of get a little nervous. Like, am I at the end of the auditions or am I at the beginning of the auditions? Like, you kind of know, you don't know what's available, but you do know, on the day that you're auditioning, like, oh crud, I'm a little nervous.
How many people have made it through before?
Yeah. So it was quite the nerve-wracking situation. And thank God Blake heard something that he liked. And from that moment, we knew that something had changed, and that something in our lives was going to be different, at least for a little while. Yeah. And it was something we were incredibly grateful for. And it was definitely a huge glimmer of hope and light during this whole time. And America fell in love with Whitney and fell in love with our story. And it was something that a lot of people could relate to, something that a lot of people have reached out talking about, their experiences and whatnot. And during the time I was gone, Whitney had to be left at home by herself, except for a short amount of time. But
we got a dog.
So the dog was there.
Yeah, we got a little puppy.
Oh,
so. But yeah, getting on the show was something that I never had thought would even happen. 40 to 45,000 people try out for the show. Yeah. And once you make it onto a team, this season you're in the top 40. And that was mind blowing.
Yeah. And it's like just getting on the stage is a win. I mean,
yeah. I mean, just honestly being looked at by the show is a win. The people that were at every single stage of the process were stars in their own right. And so to be able to progress even further was a huge honor. Yeah.
And I think,
definitely.
I mean, I love the show. I think this season, I don't know, they just had some extra remarkable people to me. I don't know. It just seemed like it was an extra amazing group. of just not even singers or musicians, but people. Like the people there really seemed to shine.
Yes, I agree. We had all talked about, oh my gosh, we feel like we're just the closest like family. And we were all not bragging on ourselves, but we were like, oh my gosh, we love each other so much. And we're all like texting back and forth and we're all cheering each other on. And it honestly felt like we were so incredibly close. And we still keep in touch. And, you know, being able to have that type of connection with people who love music and creating just as much as you do was such an incredible experience, and something that every singer needs to experience, whether they experience it on The Voice or whether they formulate, you know, or form together their own little group of writers that love music as much as they do. Just to have somebody there that's basically on the same page as you with music really felt great.
Yeah. So what has happened afterwards, and like what can we look forward to? I know I need some music from you. So
yes. I don't know if you follow me on the socials or not on like Instagram. I know we're friends on Facebook, but on Instagram and Facebook, I've been posting some really fun sneak peeks. I was able to release an acoustic version of my newest song that's going to be coming out called Better Man. And I released that on May 5th. A lot of snags have happened, which happens with music. And, you know, thanks COVID, a lot of crazy things have happened. But that song is slated to release, God willing, at the end of August, beginning of September, full version.
Good.
And then after that, there will be a couple singles releasing after that. So it's just going to be single, maybe video, single video, single video. Just kind of keep you on the edge of your seat with the new music. And some really great people have come into my life actually before the show. And I was able to talk to them after the show regarding opportunities that have been coming up. A lot of people have reached out about specific opportunities, and this person has really helped me kind of focus in on what needs to happen, who needs to be part of it, kind of like a management type thing. And so I've really enjoyed working with him. He's been an incredible person, and he's also introducing me to the right people and new writers, incredible producers. And so being able to have that type of management and help has really point me in the right direction. But again, it's after the show, just seeing the overwhelming support, the growth of my social media family, people reaching out for very fun opportunities, things that I can't quite discuss right now, but it's a lot of really cool things have been happening past the show. I hate that it's such a vague answer.
It's like, we'll just have to keep following you.
You'll just have to keep following Jon Mullin's official.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it's so funny because we and I watched every episode of The Voice all the way through. My family, I'm like, you need to watch this with me, and they're like, you know, watching whatever they're watching on their show. So I would my teenagers. That was the first time they saw you was at the concert in Pigeon Forge with Todd.
Oh, wow.
And they're like, oh my gosh, he is amazing. Like, I don't know if you heard the screaming. The screaming was my daughters who just they just loved your voice. And they're like, we want to meet him. So just to let everyone know, after the show, Jon and Todd are standing like outside greeting people, and Todd is there ready to pose for a picture, and they're like, we can get a picture with Mr. Todd anytime. We want a picture with Mr. Jon. And so literally they had Todd move so they can get a picture with Mr. Jon.
It would have been funny if they were like, hey Todd, can you take the picture? Just kidding. You know, another great thing that has come from the show is my friendship with Todd.
With a lot of people.
All of our friendships,
yeah.
Lord have mercy, all the friendships. But it's been really cool. Todd and I were definitely, and not unlikely, but I think The Voice knew what they were doing when they paired us both together. It was very interesting. Our voices are completely opposite, but we both have very similar power behind them.
Yep.
And so it was a really cool melding together of voices. And I think that kind of helped us grow together even more is having that type of vocal chemistry too. And so it also helps that we practiced the song like 500 times and spent
Ghost in the House.
Literally,
for those who those aren't familiar, you have to go to YouTube and look up Ghost in the House. It's amazing. Like I keep listening to it over and over again. And you're right. I mean, your voices are different, but like all of a sudden, like he would sing and we're like, oh man. And then you would sing, it's like, whoa. It's just like, it was amazing. Yeah. Very amazing.
It was, I mean, it was just, we spent so much time together and it was so great to be able to do that. And then, got to work with Ari Moon for my knockout, and she is an insane vocalist. So being able to formulate those more specific friendships and, man, just being friends with him, and got close to Mandy, Joey Fulco, Cedrice, like all these incredible friends that we made throughout the show. It's, man, I can't keep talking about the relationships enough that we created. It's just such a blessing.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think it really is, when, again, going back to when we can build each other up and support each other, that's what it's all about. And that's why I love even doing this podcast, because I'm like, I want to give a voice to people, let people know who these amazing people are and hear their stories and share what God is doing in their lives, because that's what it's all about. It's all about us encouraging and supporting each other. So thank you so much for being here, both of you. Again,
thank you.
Why don't you share your social media again, and then we will have it in the show notes, but go ahead and share it just so people can find you.
Yes, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Jon Mullins Official, Jon.
Yeah,
Jon
no
Mullins,
H.
No H. Don't waste the letter.
We don't need a name.
Jon Mullins Official. And then on YouTube and Twitter, it is Jon Mullins Music.
Awesome. Okay. And you roll the J according to...
You roll the J. It's John. Okay?
When
okay,
Ari
people.
was explaining how to pronounce her name, and John's like, and you roll the J.
And roll the J. Roll the J, people.
Okay. Is it too much to ask if you will sing a little song or sing a little something at the end of this?
Yeah, I would love to sing.
Okay.
Let me grab my guitar really quick.
Sure.
All right, it'll take just a moment. All right, so I'm going to sing a song for you. This song means so much to me. It goes along a lot with our story. So when we were, after Whitney had fallen, I went from playing 3 to 4 shows a week to definitely not playing that much. Yeah. So we focused definitely on making sure Whitney could heal and get better, which, again, as a husband, that's my duty. I wouldn't have done anything else but to make sure we could be on the road to recovery. And it had been a long time, probably about 2.5 years since I had written a song by myself. And so 2.5 years later, we're driving in the car on her way to her parents in Indiana.
It's like midnight.
It was like midnight. Whitney was sleeping in the car, as she usually does, and she wakes up and looks at me, and instead of like listening to music and jamming along or listening or talking on the phone or something, I was just sitting there staring out into the like dark abyss of Backroads, Indiana. And she was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm writing a song." And it had been 2.5 years since I'd written a song by myself, and at that moment, it was like every single thing that had happened in those past 2.5 years came to a head, and I was able to finally put it into words. So this song is called Drive, and I wanted to write it to let Whitney know that no matter what twists and turns or curveballs life throws at us, I will do everything in my power to get us through it. And so I'm going to play it for you.
I'm so excited.
It's called Drive. This beat up car, you can hear it rumbling, won't get us very far, but it's still running, and I bought a little gasoline with the rest of my cash, and we'll just drive, with our windows down and hair blowing in the breeze. In the country air, it reminds us that we're free, and we haven't slowed down, though we don't know where we're going. We'll just drive. There'll be twists and turns turns and lessons learned. Sometimes we'll have to stop and rest. But we'll start back up just like we never stopped. We'll let the open road, let it do the rest. And drive. If you're getting tired, lean in closer, close and rest your eyes. And I'll wake you when it's over, and I'll get us both through the night. It don't matter how many miles, I'll just drive. I'll just drive. There'll be twists and turns and lessons learned. Sometimes I'll have to stop and rest. But we'll start back up just like we never stopped. We'll let the open road, let it do the rest. And drive. We'll drive. We'll drive. There'll be twists and turns, there'll be lessons learned. Sometimes I'll have to stop and rest. But we'll start back up just like we never stopped. We'll let the open road, let it do the rest. And you and me will drive. Just drive.
Oh my goodness, I have goosebumps. That was so amazing. Okay, I have to say this is my favorite podcast recording ever. That was so awesome. I'm like sitting here like I'm getting a personal concert. Well, I know all my podcast listeners will get it too, but I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. That was awesome.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yes.
That's incredible. And I'm gonna do one more thing for you. Give me just a second. You ready? I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up, no, not yet. Even when I'm down to my last breath. Even when they say there's nothing left. So don't give up on. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even when nobody else believes. I'm not going down, that is a lie. So don't give up on me.
Fangirling over here.
Just give you that little snippet too.
I love it so much. Okay.
I appreciate your support and your having us on this show. I know Whitney appreciates it too. So thank you so much. It means so much to us.
I love it so much. Thank you for being here. And we're going to have all the links in the show notes, and we're going to be following you along for all where we could get the music and buy the music, because I want it all. So just to let you know. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. Okay, how amazing was that we got a private concert from Jon Mullins? I'm just saying that made my whole day. And truly, I was just cheering him on as he was on The Voice and afterwards, and be able to see him in concert in Pigeon Forge. I am so amazed by just how God uses people to just share his joy. And the same thing with Todd and Jon. Just seeing them, you can see the joy of the Lord on them and in their lives. And I am so thankful for Jon and Whitney being here and sharing their story. And there are those dark days that we walk through. Sometimes we wonder, why is this happening? But I love how they said if it wasn't for Whitney's accident, Jon wouldn't have had the time or the opportunity to go and pursue the voice. And now look what's happening. More people are hearing about him and his music and hearing their story and being able to relate to them and open up to them. So it's just amazing how some of the hardest things end up being the things that can lead to some of our greatest joys. So the Walk It Out scripture for today is Psalm 105:2. Sing to him, yes, sing his praises. Tell everyone about his wonderful deeds. And I just love how now that Jon and Whitney have this platform, that lots of people know them, know their story, that they're able to tell about God's wonderful deeds. And I'm also so thankful for that neurosurgeon who's able to just look at them and say, what about your spiritual life? Can I pray with you? And I love that no matter where you are in life, no matter what sector you work in, God can use you, whether you're a neurosurgeon or a musician or a writer or a waitress, and especially, a parent. God can use us to impact other people. And that is just so encouraging to me. I love that part of their story. So let me just take a moment and pray for all of us. Lord, and I know everyone right now is just facing so much uncertainty. And maybe like Whitney and Jon, they might be in a season where they feel like, what is happening? And they're so unsure, and there's anxiety, and there's that darkness. And maybe listeners are even angry right now about the situations that are happening, Lord. And I just pray that, that it's okay for, that each person will know that it's okay to have those questions and doubt, but just keep clinging. Just keep clinging. Lord, I pray that if anyone is going through a hard time, that Jon and Whitney's testimony will just bring joy and light. And I know for me, I'm just going to go back and listen to that song again, listen to him sing, because it's so encouraging. And I pray that you'll bless Jon, bless Whitney. I pray that you will bring complete healing to Whitney, and that you will just use both of them to impact so many people. I thank you for their music. I thank you for their life. I thank you for also, Lord, every listener out there. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, again, you can always go to the show notes at walkitoutpodcast.com, get all the links. Go over to Jon's Jon Mullin's Official on Facebook and Instagram and connect with him there. And also follow along and see when his music is coming out. I know that you will be encouraged. But thank you so much for tuning in to Walk It Out today. I know that that I am blessed by you. And I pray that this was a blessing to you today.
Thanks for listening to Walk It Out. Head over to the show notes for this podcast and all past episodes at www.walkitoutpodcast.com. If you love the show, share it with someone you know who can make a radical difference in the world. We love